April 20th marks Behavioral Health Today's 4th anniversary. To celebrate our 4th year mark, we're releasing 5 shows this week, 1 episode each day. 2 will be new shows, and 3 will be some of our favorites in the past year. We hope you enjoy all of them, both new and old, and we look forward to another year of bringing you trending and relevant content in behavioral and mental health.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a Triad production. I'm your host, Charlie Dixon, and today I'm joined by Bruce Brackett. Bruce, also known as BWB.Positivity, is a social media personality, author, entrepreneur, self-taught visual artist, and international motivational speaker. Originally from Southwest Montana, BWB moved to New York City at the age of 18 to pursue his dreams of being on Broadway. After many distractions, making it to off Broadway, and struggling with addictions and mental health, BWB found his true calling and his way back to sobriety through art and advocating for recovery to his online audience of over 1.2 million people. This online community of recovery fuels BWB's love, passion, creativity, and mission to share positivity in the possibilities of recovery. After many tries in rehab and outpatient therapy care, Bruce has done the work for himself to honestly live a better life. Now that he is on the side of recovery, he finds a responsibility to give that back to others. We're excited to have Bruce with us to discuss overcoming addiction, trauma recovery, motivational speaking, and his book, How to Breathe While Suffocating. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we get started today, you've been very successful using your social media presence with over 600,000 followers just on Instagram alone, and then your motivational speaking as well as a way to advocate for mental health and addiction. What was your motivation in changing or diversifying your approach to reaching people?
There's really a lot of different avenues that led me to where I am today. I started out as a at-risk youth growing up in Montana, and I didn't really have a lot of resources that I could tap into or that I knew about until later on in life. And I started on TikTok February of 2021. So, as everyone was really gravitating towards technology because of the isolation that was created during COVID,
Mhm.
when I started to share my journey on TikTok in a more authentic way, because when I began, I was more so just sharing my artwork and what TikTok normally is known for with the funny voiceovers or the
Mhm.
dancing tutorials.
Yep.
And I have always been really passionate about sharing my story in ways that would impact a positive change for people who feel less fortunate or alone or even isolated in whatever situation they're going through. And once I started to step in front of the camera and share my story in a more authentic way, the views multiplied by the thousands, and then it just sparked this avalanche of people coming into my life for the better, and I noticed that it was working. I'm very inspired by the author Dave Pesler, who wrote The Child Called It and The Lost Boy and a Man Named
Mhm.
Dave.
Mhm. Mhm.
And reading those stories when I was younger, I was like, that's my story. And they put it out in the world in such a helpful and positive way that inspired me from such a young age to become a motivational speaker, which did not happen until years later. But that's kind of where I got started. And I was on TikTok for over a year before my Instagram started to explode as well. So now across all platforms, I am so fortunate to have 1.4 million people tuning in and also sharing their experience, strength, and hope.
That is awesome. I really admire your ability to be able to start with one media and switch things around and being able to reach the people, figuring out what works and being able to continue to share that. You touched on it briefly, but can you give us just a background story? Tell us more about Bruce, how you got to participating in addiction, where did that come from, and then what led to your recovery? What worked for you?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So going back to the very beginning, I was born into detox from drugs and alcohol. So that's how I tap danced my way into the world. And from that obviously does not come without its consequences. I had speech impediments, cognitive learning disabilities. I had fetal alcohol effects on the very minor end of that spectrum. So, learning disabilities and just being awkward as a little child and growing up in rural Montana, always being me and overly expressive and, some would say flamboyant and whatnot. So I went through a lot of bullying growing up in elementary, junior high, and high school. However, that really just didn't stop me. I've always had amazing support from my adoptive parents and my siblings. I am adopted. I was removed from my birth home due to extreme abuse and neglect and sexual abuse and trauma and just, I mean, malnourished and all of the things. So the state of Montana removed my siblings and I when I was 3 years old. I'm the youngest of four older sisters. We went through the foster care system. We were adopted. And unlike a lot of stories in the foster care system or in the adoptive world, we were kept together and adopted together very quickly. We only went through two foster homes. The second one became our home where we landed with mom and dad. So I had a lot of support along the way. My parents immediately placed us into trauma therapy, art therapy, and that really helped. That helped a lot. Of course, being removed from the trauma does not just, okay, now it's all great and
Mhm.
we're moving forward. That trauma follows you throughout your life, and it still does to this day. So fast forward, when I turned 16, I went through puberty. I was going through puberty and I was at the height of it, and sign me up. What fun. So I really hit this wall and I disassociated and really started to spiral out again and very poor neglected mental health, and I ran away from home and I was missing for about a summer.
Wow.
I say that, and again, I just think of my parents and what it was that I put them through during that summer. And we've gone through a lot of therapy together. So we've done the work and we're in a much better place now. That was 18 years ago. But I ran away from home. And during that summer, I reintroduced myself to sexual addiction, drugs, alcohol. And I went so hard with meth specifically during that summer. That was really the first. I mean, of course, I drugs, weed, alcohol, and came a little bit before that. But the first drug that I really gravitated towards and abused uncontrollably was meth during that summer. And there's a lot in my book of How to Breathe While Suffocating that is focusing on that summer and all of the different cities that I went to and the men that I met and the drugs and what happened, the chaos that ensued from all of that. And then because of the angels above and higher powers that be, I survived that and went back home and with a miracle graduated high school with the top GPA of my graduating class. And, like I say that and it's really comical to me because of my criminal record at that time after getting out of juvenile detention center after I ran away from home and going through group homes. I wasn't allowed back in the public school system or in the Catholic school that I went to in the ninth grade. So the only option for me was to go to an alternative high school, which I did. And there was only six graduating people in my class. And so I joke that I was valedictorian of my graduating class of troubled youth. And I got my act together. I moved to New York City and was auditioning and dancing a lot. I have a huge background in musical theater and as a dancer. And after about a year and a half of auditioning and dancing and getting very minor roles here and there, nothing that really even paid. I did shows for free sometimes, but it was the love of the art. And after the constant rejection, I gave up and I was like, how else can I perform dance and make money? And I was like, oh, I can be a go-go boy in the nightclubs.
Nice.
Red flag for Brucey, like, no, 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 there's gonna be
Mhm.
drugs, alcohol, sex, all of
Mhm.
that. And I found it. And it was just again this avalanche of drugs, sex, and alcohol that started to take over. We're talking about the ages of like 18, 19, and 20. And 21, I was diagnosed HIV positive, which really opened the gates for heavy drug use. And again, I went back with meth and sex work and just fell down that rabbit hole to the point where I was hospitalized many times, overdoses. My HIV was borderline AIDS, acute hep C, every STD under the sun, pneumonia. And it was at that point when I was dying that I listened to that little spark and that light inside of me that wanted to live that much more and show up for my dreams and actually be who it was that I really wanted to be. And for some reason, I listened to that more than the cravings or the distractions within the nightlife. And I did. I put the drugs down with a lot of help, outpatient rehab programs, 12-step programs, therapy. I did not do this alone. So credit for the professionals that really helped to keep me going and that gave me a lot of help and my friends and family that stuck by and supported me.
Mhm.
I did not do this alone.
Absolutely. And you really touched on a huge thing with addiction, that recovery is a process. It's not just I am free from drugs today and I never have to worry about it again. And it truly is a lifelong process to keep yourself on the even keel. And so I congratulate you on being able to kind of dip in and out of that, but continue to push yourself forward. And
Thank
really
you.
listening. Oh, absolutely. You mentioned that there was a light, a small flicker, a voice that you heard. Tell me more about that voice that said, "You can do this. You can make it."
That voice is stemmed from the outpour and unlimited love and support that came from my parents and the theater community in Montana when I was growing up, and the dance academy that I went to, where I was really successful. And at a very young age, was getting paid professionally in repertory theaters in Montana, which not many people my age at that time were doing, especially in
Mhm,
Montana. So there was success. There was that feeling of accomplishment at a young age. And then, of course, going through the teenage years and puberty and the distractions of everything that comes in life and being, I'm 16, I know it all. Like, no, you
mhm.
don't. Shut up. Like, like
Yeah,
that's kind of where
yeah.
I was. So I was really bouncing back and forth between listening to that light and listening to the lies and the voices in my head that were telling me it's
Mhm,
okay to go do these other things. But that light is really stemmed from that, again, from the love and support from my parents, and that's enough to plant the seed
mhm.
for me to harness my own light that I can listen to, for me to really start to believe in myself. So there's 2 parts of that equation, and eventually, fast forward to the hospital stays and the overdoses, that light was just my only option. It was do or die, and that light was my due. So I grabbed onto it with all of my might, and I really have never let go of it ever since, although addiction has come in many ways since then with alcohol. I got sober from hardcore drugs, approaching 10 years sober from that. And then not too long after that, I found alcohol and
Mhm.
so you're absolutely correct. Recovery in any spectrum, whether it's mental health or a physical recovery
Mhm.
or addiction, it's not linear. It's not a cookie cutter program. One shoe does not fit all. Find what you gravitate towards, find what works, leave the rest, and take your time. Oh my goodness, we're all so inapt to have instant gratification, especially with social media.
Yep.
You scroll, scroll, scroll. What's going to make me happy? That dopamine hit, and it slow down. My advice is slow down. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, traveling through the universe at 67,000 miles per hour. It's going fast enough for all of us. Slow down.
Slow
You're
down.
right where you need to be.
Absolutely. Slow down. I like that. So you didn't really mention this much because it seemed like you had a lot of support. So correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I hear a lot of people mention that they have trouble reaching out or that they feel stigmatized or that they feel like people will look at them incorrectly or their family may leave them or
Mhm.
whatever. Have you experienced the stigma around asking for help or was it different for you? Were you able to really, like you mentioned, tap into the people and they came running? How did that happen for you?
So I can relate to both sides of that coin. I'm very fortunate looking back and realize that I did have a lot of help that was waiting for me when I was ready and willing to accept it from my parents who were providing that help through therapy and whatnot. And I do realize that not everyone has that privilege or those people in their life. And although I did have that in my life, I still chose to ignore it and
Mhm.
I felt like I couldn't ask for help. I felt like I was really alone, even though the help was there and waiting for me. The help is always there, and the help is always waiting for you, no matter who is in your life, no matter what situation you're going through or where you started, what's happening in your life. It is there. And sometimes it takes getting over our ego of asking for help, getting out of our own way, and just showing up. Show up for yourself. 90% of the success that happens is just showing up, and then
Mhm.
the rest will come. Asking for help can look like so many different variations of posting a video and just spewing what it is that you're going through, and who knows who it's going to affect, or calling a friend and being like, "Hey, I just want to go out for brunch," and maybe not even talk about what it is that you're going through, but having that connection. And then eventually you will find that asking for help may come out of you without saying, "Hey, I need help with this." You can ask for help in so many different ways. Again, I did have that help there waiting for me, even though I chose not to take it and accept it. And it
Mhm.
is hard. Asking for help is hard, no matter who you are or what you need help with in whatever situation, whether it's addiction, mental health, crisis, trauma, starting a new job, and you don't know what you're doing, and
Yeah.
you're afraid to ask for help.
Mhm.
The only way to get better at what it is that you're trying to accomplish is by learning and by accepting the experience and the help from others that have done it before you. These are all things that I would tell my younger self at that time. Now that I know that it's a practice to ask for help. It doesn't come
Mhm.
naturally for many, many, many people. So to accept that, embrace that, and just start to practice it. And eventually you will find that, oh my God, I'm the CEO of asking for help, like so it comes in waves and it
Mhm.
is building a practice. So give yourself time and it'll happen.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Continuing education is both a requirement and a learning opportunity, but finding the right CE provider can be challenging. AATBS, a triad company, offers continuing education for psychologists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, counselors, and behavior analysts. CE courses are available both individually and as part of our new All Access Pass. All Access Pass provides a library of over 250 unique courses. That's more than 800 hours of CEs, with new courses being added every month. As a special offer, Behavioral Health Today listeners can save 15% on CE purchases. Visit us at aatbs.com/BHT and enter promo code BHT15 during checkout. That's aatbs.com/BHT. Check out our library and check off your CE requirements today.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've mentioned early on and just now as well, so I wanna kinda switch gears and really talk about social media. So you mentioned that you started posting on TikTok and your focus wasn't necessarily had anything to do with addiction or really even positivity, it was about sharing your art. And you just mentioned also that using social media can be a way to ask for help or even again
Mhm.
show positivity. I took a moment to look at your Instagram page, your bwb.positivity. And I was saying the first video that I saw, and I think it was the most recent one, you mentioned hold out your hands or let me grab your hands. And it was really just a quick breathing type of exercise. And I'm not sure why today was the day that I decided to check that one out, but I was kind of struggling at work today. But just that moment of positivity, and I had not met you before, didn't really know much about you yet, but just that moment of positivity kind of eased the craziness, the rough parts of my day today. Can you talk with me more, talk with our listeners more about what that feels like? How were you able to impart positivity to your listeners? What type of lens do you put on it? How do you do it? Give me more. Give me it all.
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I'm so grateful to be a part of your life, whether we're holding hands in person or not. That that's exactly why I do it, is because so many people are going through something that we may or may not know anything about, whether it's someone you know or a stranger that we're literally just meeting now for the first time.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. There is a formula that I have, a formula of three before I post something. And that
Okay.
is, does this need to be in the world? Two, will this be helpful being in the world? And three, do I myself need to hear this? And another way of saying that is, if someone were to come to me and say this, is this something that I need to hear?
Yeah.
So if it fits all of those categories, it's a green light and I go ahead and post it. And I'm not a guru at social media. I am just figuring it out as we go. I am having so much fun with it and seeing the response that comes from my following. I call them my BWB family members because I usually always have my clap fan. Just to see the response and to see comments like what you just shared with me. Hey, you really created a moment of ease in my chaos of a day. That's why I do it, just to help people feel less alone. It helps me. It's a two-way street. I'm in no way doing this for attention. I'm not doing this for followers. It's just that happens to be one of the gifts that come from what it is that I do. I love my following. I love the intimate people in my life. It's not about the numbers for me. Like I don't do this for money. I do this because in some way someone did that for me when I was struggling. Now that I'm on this side of it, it is my responsibility. I feel like it is my responsibility to give back to those who are still left in the flames. So my formula changes. I mean, again, I started with my art and then I started to share my story. And then one day I just ran up to the camera and I was like, hey, oh, no, 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 no. We're not doing that today. We're not accepting the negativity. Negativity be gone. And then that's really when my platforms multiplied into the hundreds of thousands. And there's just something about showing up and being honest and being real that people
Mhm.
connect to.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more personal when you see someone going through it as well and it's real. It creates that sense of community, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Absolutely.
I
So
hope I
oh,
answered your question.
oh, you absolutely did. You absolutely
Okay.
did. I just have more. I have so
Great.
many questions about it.
Gimme,
I'm
gimme,
very
gimme. Okay,
interested
good. Okay, good.
because I really am very interested in how you like what types of content people gravitate to the most. So for me, it was the video, just that I feel like it was what you just posted in the last few days.
Mhm.
Just that video, and I didn't even hear it. I read the words as they came up. So, what types of content really are people gravitating towards? Because again, I was at work. I didn't really have the moment to really listen. I was doing something else, so I needed to read something, and I read it. It wasn't the video itself.
Wow, see, like, those are things I don't really think about, of that people have me on silent and they
Mhm.
still get the message just by reading it, which is exactly why I put the captions, because of situations like that. So, that's really cool to hear. I love that. I I don't really look at the numbers, and I don't really look at the analytics. The only analytics that I really look at are, where are my followers? in what countries are they? Because
Okay.
I'm curious about that, and I want to
Yeah.
know where in the world people are coming from. But I think that the videos that tend to gravitate towards people the most are either when I'm dressed in high fashion or in my style of fashion, which I consider high fashion. Thank you very much. And I think when I do the hold my hands and breathe, take a deep breath, because how many times in your day do you go through and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not breathing. Like, I need to
Mhm.
take a deep breath here. It's just an excellent reminder when I am sharing my own experience going through cravings or triggers that might be coming up in my life.
Mhm.
Those tend to really gravitate towards people as well, or people really gravitate towards those. And sharing my DUI experiences, sharing my trauma that I've experienced in short little segments of like, yeah, there was this one time that I was a sex worker and I didn't get paid and I had to like walk myself back to New York from New Jersey, or I was broke and I couldn't feed myself, so I was stealing and, doing all of the things that I needed to do to survive. And just having that realness come through, I feel like those are the ones that tend to do well. But I mean, even my goofy videos seem to be doing really well. I
Mhm.
do recognize when I start to go through the comments of, "Thank you so much. I really needed to hear that today. You just pulled me out of my depression, or you saved my life." Like that one always really just, again, I was there, I've been there, and it is just so amazing to me that I went from what it was that I started at to where I'm at now, and that for some reason I have that capability that people connect with. It is the greatest gift that's why I do what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can completely agree with you. The level of authenticity that is just, it's palpable. And so that is really what brings people in and is drawing people in, me included, which is interesting because a lot of times what we see on social media is not necessarily real, right?
Mm-mm.
So how can you create healthy relationships and healthy content to social media? How are people able to do that? How can you help people do that?
Well, like I mentioned before, I have the formula of 3, and a lot of them don't have to do with me. As a content creator, there's more connection when you look at the camera, because in the world of technology, when you're looking at the camera, you're in effect looking at the person that you're speaking to instead of watching yourself record yourself. There's a disconnect when your eyes are looking down. So there's a little thing there for connection. Plus, I really don't enjoy the sound of my voice or even watching myself. When I even come across my own For You page and immediately I'm like, oh, get out of here. Like, I can't listen to myself. But I too also listen to my videos sometimes when I need to be reminded of what
Mhm.
it is that I'm doing. You know, there are so many different types of influencers or people who are creating content. Whether you're trying to be an influencer or not, just be real, be you. That's what people want, that's what people need, and that's what really a lot of people connect to. There's beauty influencers, and there's influencers who are like, I bought this product, you should go buy it. There's many different types of influencers. I'm learning to accept that term for myself. I more so just consider myself a friend to people who need it. I consider myself an advocate for those who are going through mental health, trauma, addiction recovery. Influencer is a new word for me that I'm trying to like put it on my tongue and have it taste okay. But I guess in a sense, yes, I am. And I think that if you can find something that you love to do, that you were passionate about, and that you have fun doing, anything else is fair game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just as you've mentioned, being able to share your story and being real and being authentic you are an inspiration to others and you are impacting change in others as well. And one of the things that I know about you is that you have been nominated for an award multiple times. Can you tell us about that award?
Yeah, it's very exciting. That's coming up next month. April is a big month for me. That's the month that my book tour happens. When my book is launched, I'm going to Las Vegas for the Cheer Choice Awards again for the second time. I went last year and I was nominated for motivational speaking last year. This year, I'm nominated for overall mindfulness and top fundraiser. Over the course of the last year and a half, I've raised $50,000 for different nonprofit organizations across the United States for many different reasons. I mean, the fires in Maui, I raised money for animal shelters, Trans Uniting in Pennsylvania, Gay and Sober, the conference in New York City, My Mental Health Inc. There and I mean there's so many more that I'm forgetting at this moment. So I am nominated for the overall mindfulness, which is I think the mindfulness of being aware that other people are struggling and just holding their hands and breathing and giving them a safe space to just kind of bleh, let it go, that negativity be gone. And then of course, the top fundraiser for all of the different fundraising that I've done. And the Cheer Choice Awards, this is their third year. This is the third annual Cheer Choice, and it's hosted in Las Vegas. It is a fundraiser specifically for Spread the Cheer, which is another organization that I have fundraised for. And it's an amazing nonprofit organization that raises money and provides to children in need, not only during the holidays to help them have gifts or food or money, but all year long. They go to schools that don't have ramps for ADA approved. And they'll go and they'll build a ramp for a school, or they'll provide school supplies for children in need. So it's a great cause. It is so much fun. I'm so excited to go back and to be with other influencers who are positively creating better change into the world. That's what the award show is all about. So, yay, I'm so excited.
As you should be. It's awesome. And mentioning those award nominations, and of course, you've got your book coming out, your social media success. What would you say, though, is your most meaningful accomplishment so far?
Getting sober.
Mm,
100,000% getting sober. I would not have anything in my life without that. That comes first for me. Like I said, I've had many close calls in my addiction where that would have been it for me with the overdoses, the hospital stays.
mhm,
I mean, I was not a nice person. I was stealing, I robbed stores, I went to jail, I was working in the sex world in a not healthy way. I advocate for sex workers. That is a real profession.
mhm,
There's no discrimination there. There's a healthy way to do it, and I was not doing that. Putting myself in danger constantly, putting loved ones in danger constantly, lying to them, stealing from them, hurting them. When you're in active addiction, you think that you have it together, yet in some way you probably know or you're aware that you're hurting yourself. It is not just about you. You hurt everyone around you, whether you realize it or not, emotionally, spiritually, the whole spectrum of that. So being in active addiction is very selfish, and being in recovery is selfish, but there's negative selfish and there is
mhm.
positive selfish. So to answer your question, my biggest accomplishment by far is getting sober. Quickly following that, I would say my relationship with my partner, Teo, who has been my rock and who has also thrown me over his shoulder because of a drunken chemically induced coma that I put myself in to take me to
Mm.
the hospital. Like, I mean, he's seen it all. He wasn't there for my meth addiction, but he was definitely there for drunk Bruce. So thank you, Teo. And I love you so much. And then following that, I think one of the biggest things that I've done in my life is to write my book and actually follow through on that journey and finish something that I started. I've done that a few times in my life, having the goal of moving to New York City and being on Broadway. I did not make it to Broadway, but I got to off Broadway. That's good enough for me,
Mhm.
and just the success of living in New York City. I've had many people tell me that I wouldn't survive there and I would move home very quickly. I live there and I still live there. I still have an apartment up in Harlem, and we're talking 14 years later and I'm still trugging along. And yeah, being off Broadway, my partner, being sober, my book, just building my life. It's just, none of that would be possible if I didn't have my sobriety.
Absolutely. Your life is an inspiration, Bruce. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank
And
you.
as yes, sir. And as we wind down today, for the people, the folks that are listening that are suffering with addiction, or maybe even they have family members that they are seeing somebody going through this, what advice do you have for them? Leave us with the final word on addiction, stigmatizing help, or how to reach out, how to be positive.
There are so many options in this world. There are 8 billion people on this planet. You are unique in your own way. You are the only you out of 8 billion people. You are capable. You are worthy. You can overcome what you think you cannot. There's so much good coming your way, no matter what it is that you're facing, where you started, how it's going, where you think that you're going to be. The universe has a lot more in store for you and ways that you couldn't have even imagined. And for those struggling, keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't give up. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show your emotions. Men, it is okay to cry. It is okay to show your emotions.
Mhm.
Everyone in between, it's okay to be you. And it's not about being different. It's not about fitting in. It's about being you, damn it. Like, be you. You're the only you. And I talk a lot about this. I'm going to show this here, but here it is, How to Breathe While
Mhm.
Suffocating, my book. I talk a lot about everything, everything. I talk about everything in that book. And I am just so excited and honored to share it with the world in a much more in-depth, detailed version. And it's not necessarily a self-help book, but it is a book that will allow you to realize what it is that you're going through, and what you're going through is okay. There is a way out, and you too can overcome and recover. For people who are witnessing others struggling, or your loved one, you're watching your loved one go through active addiction, be there for as long as you have your limit. Listen to them, love them. It's okay to love them from afar. If you need to step back and stop enabling them, which is key, do not enable, but be there for them. Listen, love. And sometimes that means stepping away. And
Mhm.
maybe you come back into their life and maybe you don't. But what's more important, your heart, your peace, your own life, or other people's happiness? You're not in charge of their happiness. You're in charge of yourself. We're the engineers of our own outcome. So create your own outcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. I can tell why you're a good motivational speaker. Thank you for that, Bruce. So, where can we learn more about your book, How to Breathe While Suffocating? A story of overcoming addiction, recovering from trauma, and healing my soul. Where can folks follow up with you on your social media accounts? And where can people just learn more about you and your work?
Sure. Yeah. I am so excited. The book is being released April 9th. It's on pre order now, anywhere that books are sold. I highly recommend that you go through bookshop.org, because they raise money and they give back money to independent bookstores all over the nation. So that's a great way just to create community and support mom and pop shops here. But it's available everywhere: Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Target, the list goes on and on. The new RuPaul's bookstore that they launched with a few other people, All Stora, is another place that you can purchase it as well. Again, it's going to be on the shelves April 9th. And my social media handle across all social media that I have, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Threads, is bwb.positivity. And I have many impersonators that are scamming people. So if it does not have that verification check mark, on Instagram and Threads. It is not me. And if the account does not have over 690,000 followers on TikTok, it is not me. I do not ask for money for readings. I do not provide readings. So I just want to be very clear about that. And you can also visit me on my websites, bwbart.com, as well as howtobreathewhilesuffocating.com. And I'm just so excited to be a part of everyone's life. And thank you so much for having me. And I wish unlimited love and luck to the both of you and to all of the listeners. Again, I hold you very close to my heart and I fully believe in you.
Thank you very, very much, Bruce. I really have appreciated and enjoyed speaking with you today.
Thank you. I mean, the honor is a two-way street, and I thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I look forward to next time. And to all the listeners, thank you for listening, and just thanks for having me.
And I also want to thank you, our listeners, for dropping by and joining Bruce and I. It's always great to have you with us. I want to remind you that our episode archive and all of our resources for this episode can be found on our website at triadhq.com/BHT. Our podcast is on the Triad community, so come join us and the other mental health professionals at hellotriad.com. Thanks again for being with us on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Tribe Network, all rights reserved.